The Death Eaters formed a loose circle around Harry and his friends in the center of the dance floor. They watched in interest as the Weasley girl approached the Mudblood State, kissed his cheek, and said,
"Happy Halloween, Dad!"
Lucius laughed so hard he had to put his hands on his knees to balance himself. "This is brilliant!" he exclaimed. "Arthur's wife must have got tired of dropping out boys and cuckolded the bastard," he stated, completely ignoring the possibility the Weasleys had adopted the red-headed girl.
"Now do you see why I had Snape set up this private viewing for us?"
Voldemort inquired sarcastically. Wiping a tear of laughter from his eye, Lucius nodded. "Yes, my lord. As always, your wisdom and foresight are far beyond anything we possess," he replied. Voldemort looked around the circle at his followers as the students and the strange man drifted apart to have room to dance.
"The night is young. Keep vigilant," he advised.
The Death Eaters muttered their acknowledgments and focused in on their appointed quarry. The lights dimmed, and the band began to play. An overwhelming sense of something forgotten, just out of reach, filled Voldemort. He felt jarred every time he caught sight of Harry and his friends, as if he expected to see someone else in the clothes they had chosen for the ball. The band played 3 fast songs, and then the lights came up on the stage. Voldemort was only half listening to the singer go on about owing someone for getting their band together. He thought they were speaking about Dumbledore, so he was taken by surprise when the singer pointed down at the Mudblood State. "This one's for you, Doctor," the singer said. The last word in that sentence caused the final tumbler to be thrown on the lock that had held back so many memories. Voldemort stared off into space as a flood from his past lives washed over him. He remembered that at one time he was 2 people, a small boy and a wraith that had escaped from the emptiness of the void. He remembered the hell of existing without form outside the real universe. Not being would have been preferable to what he had become after the destruction of the Dark Matrix, the energy bolt that had struck him trapping his essence in the void between dimensions as his already discorporated essence was taken from the stolen body of the Keeper. The Valeyard's outraged TARDIS trapped him in the void in its last act of defiance, protecting his younger self. Unfortunately for the ship, it had failed to take into account that as long as the Doctor lived, the Valeyard existed in a potential state, even if the precise events that led to his existence no longer applied. Since time had no meaning in the void, Voldemort had no idea how long he had been there before the crack appeared. He had been drawn to the jagged crack and was able to see reality on the other side. From the void side of the crack, the wraith that had been the Valeyard could see all of time and space, just like when he had looked into the untempered schism when he was a child. He forced his way through the crack and found himself weakened, barely able to hold his existence together. A host was needed if he wanted to continue in this reality. While a Time Lord would have been preferable, he wasn't able to sense any. He had decided to settle for second best and made his way to Earth. Once he arrived, the wraith went around the globe searching for the most suitable candidate. He was pleasantly surprised when he came across a young boy by the name of Thomas Riddle, living in a London orphanage. The boy possessed immense power, and had a thirst for power equal to his own. He appeared to the boy and then slid into the other's body, trying to take over. Unfortunately, he was too weak, and the minds and spirits fused instead, forming a new person. His memories of being the Doctor and a Time Lord were hidden, only surfacing through his subconscious. He now understood why he had chosen the name Lord Voldemort, the Logelfrain word for Valeyard. Voldemort closed his eyes, held out his arms, and welcomed all of the Valeyard's memories. He was finally complete. When he opened his eyes, he saw the Mudblood lead the Doctor out of the room. A true smile lit up Voldemort's face as a new plan sprang to life, fully formed into his mind.
"Welcome to my world, Doctor,"
he whispered to the image of his other self. He silently cursed there not being any transfer gems on the outside of the castle. He sighed, and turned to watch the rest of the students who were dancing to another fast song. His eyes locked onto Ginny, the implication of what she had said earlier fully clicking in his mind.
"I have a daughter?"
he said breathlessly.
And she's dating the boy!
He spat. Voldemort watched Ginny and Harry dance, their bodies far too close for his liking. He smirked when he caught sight of Lucius's boy Draco, making his way over towards Ginny. Voldemort trailed after him, curious to see what would happen. Draco stopped just out of striking range of Potter or his girlfriend.
Well, Potter, I see your filthy girlfriend has decided to dress like the cheap whore she is,
he said acidly. Voldemort watched Harry go very still. He noticed Ginny place a hand over his for just a brief instant. The irritating woman, Professor McGonagall, started to rush forward, but she was stopped by Dumbledore placing a restraining hand on her elbow. Ginny turned her back on Harry and took a couple of steps towards Malfoy, swaying her hips seductively. She stopped when she stood directly in front of Draco.
Harry never talks to me that way,
Ginny told Draco, her voice low and sexy.
I've always wanted a man to talk to me that way,
she purred. Draco smirked at Harry, his face full of smug satisfaction. Ginny put her hands on Draco's shoulders, drawing the blond boy's attention back to her.
It gives me an excuse to do this,
she whispered and leaned towards him, as if she were going to kiss him. Draco leaned forward as well, but the kiss never came. Instead, Ginny used all of the martial skills she had been programmed with at birth and drove her knee into his groin. Draco fell to the ground, his hands clasped around his injury, tears streaming down his face. Professor McGonagall shook off Dumbledore's hand and strode to face Ginny.
50 points from Gryffindor for violation of the school's no-fighting policy,
she said sternly. Ginny only nodded in reply, the look in her eyes anything but contrite. McGonagall motioned for the younger Crabbe and Goyle to come over.
Take Mr. Malfoy to the hospital wing,
she ordered.
Lucky for him that ever since the invention of Quidditch, several potions have been developed for repairing ruptured testicles,
she told them. Once the Slytherin boys carried Draco out of earshot, McGonagall leaned over to Ginny and whispered,
55 points will be awarded to Gryffindor for you being able to strike what I assume to be a very small target.
She winked at Ginny and then went back to stand next to Dumbledore.
How dare she? Lucius fumed. I'll have her sacked for taking sides with that lower-class tramp,
he promised. He started to say before he was thrown into the far wall by a magical gesture from Voldemort. Voldemort stared at Lucius, pointed his hands, and muttered,
Crucio!
Green energy ran from Voldemort's hand to strike Lucius square in the chest. The elder Malfoy writhed in pain as the energy danced through his body.
Ginevra is off limits,
Voldemort said softly. He looked around at the other Death Eaters.
If any of you so much as speak ill of her, let alone harm her, I will make sure that person will live for a very, very long time, he warned. The fact that he had continued feeding energy into the crustaceous curse that was tormenting Lucius drove home the notion that the long life he spoke of would be filled with unimaginable pain and misery. Voldemort let his hand drop and dismissed the curse. Lucius lay on the ground, his tears mimicking his son's.